We are now in the Sugar Show and we have a new Bantamweight champion. This puts the entire division on notice. Mark and I are going to talk about who Sean should fight next and where the rest of the division will play out. But before we do, if you're new here, make sure you subscribe as we have brand new videos every single week. So, Mark, it seems the very obvious choice is Chito Vera versus Sean O'Malley in December. Is that a fight that you're interested in? And do you think Chito deserves a title shot?
No, I'm not interested in it particularly at all. I don't think Chito's done enough to secure that title shot, which sounds ridiculous coming from the only guy who actually has a win over Sean O'Malley, technically. But his performances since then, obviously losing to Sandhagen, and it wasn't a lackluster performance against Pedro Munoz, but it definitely secured the win, but it wasn't anything dazzling, was it? It didn't secure him a title shot. What about you? Are you interested in this fight at all?
Yes and no. So I am interested in seeing that rematch because I think Sean's going to batter him this time. I think he'll just piece him up because when you actually go back and watch the fight, even on one leg, Sean was giving Chito a lot of problems until he overextended. And now I just sound like a Sean O'Malley fanboy, but I genuinely think Sean O'Malley's going to just slice through Chito Vera. Because, I've said it a million times before. Chito's big problem is he's too slow and then he just catches some old men and knocks them out, And I don't think he'll be able to do that with Sean unless he manages to kick the back of his leg in that exact moment, in that exact place at the exact right time, which seems very, very unlikely. But the big problem is there is an interest in it in both for O'Malley and Chito and the UFC and fans. So it seems like it's going to happen. If all four parties involved in the UFC are interested in it, then it's going to happen, isn't it, really? Deserving or not. But talking of deserving, what about Aljamain Sterling? He's defended the title, 4 times now? Or is it 3 times? I don't know. He's defended it quite a bit. And normally, if a champion's defended that much, we'd get an instant rematch. Do you think that Aljamain will get an instant rematch, or do you think he'll have to fight someone else first?
I would say if I was the decision maker and the matchmaker, I'd say Aljamain deserves it straight away. Even though it basically just got flatlined pretty much. Some people are calling for an early stoppage. I think it was well justified. But yeah, I think Aljamain's done enough and he's proved himself against the best in the world. Love him or hate him, you can't deny his skill set. I think he definitely deserves a rematch to get this title shot. He's beaten everyone else. Everyone else, notable opponent, whether it's in the past or in recent years. But yeah, Chito Vera, I think that rematch would make more sense if Chito was undefeated up until this rematch. But, Sandhagen a few months ago, a decision win. And like you say, he seems to, he doesn't put his foot on the gas until later on. He doesn't switch it on until later on. And I don't think Sean O'Malley will give him that opportunity.
No, definitely not. And the big problem is it's all about just because he's lost, and it's an asterisk loss as well, isn't it? We've said it a million times before. Yeah, fine. Chito technically won, and great for him, but there's too many questions around it. And I think a lot of people are going to want answers to those questions. And the big problem is now we're all talking about, how mainstream Sean O'Malley is and if he's going to be that next big star. The big problem is now people are going to look at this, a more casual audience who don't really watch MMA are going to come in and go, oh, well, he's lost to this one guy, so they have to fight again. So I think they're really, really going to push for that fight. And it doesn't interest me too much, really, but unfortunately it is what it is. So with Aljamain, I'd love to see that rematch eventually. I think the big problem is when you've been knocked out in the second and it's such a dominant performance, I don't want to see another rematch just yet. And I think the big problem for Aljamain is Dana White hates his guts, so he's not gonna give him another title shot unless he has to. And I think the only way we'll see Aljo get a rematch is if he goes through the contenders and beats them all up again. If Aljamain had to fight another contender, who do you think you'd like to see him fight?
I think a rematch with Corey Sandhagen could really put him up there. Obviously Sandhagen got submitted in the first by Aljo some time ago. But coming off a win of Chito Vera, I know that Sandhagen's, he's resting up. In fact, I'll retract that. One fight I would love to see is Aljamain Sterling versus Marab, but that's never going to happen because he's
Yeah, it's
best
definitely
buds.
not going to happen.
But I think Sandhagen's done enough to get himself up there. Not quite a title shot, even though he's just beat the guy who we're presuming is going to be next in line to fight Sean O'Malley. But I
Yeah,
think
exactly.
that'd be a rematch that I'd like to see.
That'd be the bad thing, wouldn't it, if Chito Vera did get a title shot over Corey Sandhagen. But the issue is Corey's injured. So if he's injured, he can't fight for the title. And that's fair enough. We've got to move on. We can't be sitting around waiting for title contenders. But it's funny you bring up Marab versus Aljamain because a lot of people going, oh, Marab's not going to fight Aljamain. He's going to hold the division up. Well, he's not, is he? Buddy Marab, Aljamain's only fought 3 or 4 people since then, but never mind. I'm glad Marab's holding up the division. I hate that whole thing. You don't want to fight his teammate. What's wrong with that? I wouldn't want to fight my teammate, Well, I don't want to fight anyone, but, never mind. So ideally, well, not ideally, we're going to get Sean in December versus Chito Vera. But there's talks of Conor McGregor versus Chandler as the main event for December, which just seems a bit sloppy and a bit messy. And we don't even know if that fight's going to happen. It's probably not going to happen. But we're sort of talking about Sean's star power. If he's a co-main event to Conor, do you think that just sort of belittles the whole point of the titles and the divisions if the champions are the co-main rather than the main event?
I think so, to be honest. I mean, personally, I get a bit sick of hearing the Conor rumors as it is in general because it seems to be one way than the other. And I think a lot of the fans, you mentioned earlier about the casual fan base coming with Sean O'Malley. Conor brought a lot of casual fans with him as well. And I think the buzz that has been continuous throughout is these fans wanting 2015/2016 back again. And you're like, you've got to face reality. If he does come back and in main events over the champion, I think that's a bit cruel. You could maybe have a stretch that, it's the Ultimate Fighter finale, the coaches, but still, it's not for a title. He hasn't fought in over 2 years. It's, I don't know, it just seems like a bit of a far reach to me.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think it'd be incredibly unfair to the champions if they're co-maining to Conor. And I really, really respect Conor a lot if he did take a co-main spot. And I think it'd be really interesting if he went, yeah, I'll co-main. But I think the big problem is he's too big a star, isn't he? And, everyone talks about O'Malley being the next Conor McGregor. And maybe he is, and maybe he will be. But for now, there's still only one Conor, isn't there? And he is that big star. So he is the main event. And I think that's, a real shame for the title holders. But it is what it is. But
I was just going to say, I'm just quickly on that. I think this next fight for Conor, I think that'll be make or break. I think.
Yeah.
And when you say about O'Malley being the next Conor, and there was a lot of discussions about his knockout of Aljamain Sterling being Conor's Jose Aldo moment, I fully believe that. And I fully believe that the UFC are pushing that because if you know, this is the only time where the UFC have uploaded the full knockout on their Facebook page instantly on their YouTube because I think it's to try and gain more eyes to this guy. It was almost shades of that, except it didn't happen in 13 seconds. But, straight down, face was the first thing to hit the floor. I think they're trying to gain a new audience and push a new star because there's always new stars coming through. We said it last week, stars make themselves. And Sean O'Malley has done enough. He's took the right path. Let's face it, people can say all day long that he fought cans, but you're like, yeah, but at the time, he wasn't ranked himself. Yeah. And he was knocking these guys out. It was a bit of a jump from Pedro Munoz to Piotr, but he proved himself. So, there's people that are still wittering about that, and you're like, but he won. So what's the issue here? And he's just knocked out the champion. Piotr couldn't get Aljamain done. TJ Dillashaw couldn't get him done. Henry Cejudo, Triple C, couldn't get him done. And Sean flatlined him in the second round. What more do you want?
Exactly. And that's the thing, isn't it? Sean O'Malley is now going to be that next big star. I think there's no doubt about it, is there? He's too popular. He's too interesting. and he had that big flash KO, and it's too exciting. And I'm personally really, really excited for it. I always like these new eras. Like, okay, you get like the Chuck Liddell era, you get then you get the Ronda era, the Conor era, and now you've got the Sean O'Malley era. And we've been pining for that new star for such a long time, because when we get these big stars, you build it up more and more and more. And I think Sean O'Malley's young enough that he can bring that sort of new audience with him. You know, all these kids who drink Prime and play Fortnite, rather than watching KSI, they might start watching Sean O'Malley instead. But I do think that's all we've got time for. Thank you, everyone, for watching. If you can like, comment, and subscribe, it really does help us out.